Yeah. Surprise, a little different than you're used to. Yeah. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. Yeah. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the Moe, all the Mars on deck.
All right. What's going on, everyone? How are we doing? So, what am I doing? Here we go. Let's do this. Right. There we go. It's been a few days. I've been away. I was in Greece for 4 days, so there hasn't been any activity on the channel at all, apart from obviously the podcast episode on Monday. But it's been nice to get out to Greece. I didn't go to Rhodes or Corfu, anywhere where there was the wildfires. We went to Hania, which was amazing, really, to be fair. And it's the first time in a while that I've been away for 4 days and actually done next to nothing when it comes to work. I normally work, but we are back. We arrived late yesterday morning. I think it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock by the time we got home, and it's been a full-on day today. I booked myself meetings. I shouldn't have. I just shouldn't have. But here we go. Look, lots to talk about because tomorrow is the big day. So if you have been following, I have been talking about the fact that inflation, interest rates, those two things are intrinsically linked together. Interest rates is the tool that the Bank of England will use to effectively bring inflation down. And for the first time in the last 15, it will be 15 tomorrow, interest rates that we've seen, well, maybe for the second time actually, but the first time we've seen a significant drop in inflation from, it was 8 point something, right? 8.4, 8.7% to 7.9. So we hit the target, which is good news. However, the Monetary Policy Committee meet tomorrow, and the consensus is that we are going to see a further interest rate hike to 5.25%. So they're going to push it up by 0.25%. Now, I do have a poll in the community right now, and I would love your input on this. Do you think we are at the top of the rate hikes? Do you think there's going to be any more? I'll give some views. We're going to have a look at some data, so on and so forth. We're also just going to talk about, look, what does this all mean? Because a lot of the pain that you would expect to feel when it comes to mortgage rates specifically, a lot of it hasn't actually fed through right now. And are we in a position where we should be rethinking what the norm is? Those are all valid questions. And if you have been following the news, the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, and the Fed over in the States this past week increased interest rates by 0.25%. So regardless of the fact of, the US specifically, that has now got their inflation rate down to 3%, and bearing in mind, their target is the same as ours, 2%. They've got theirs at 3%. They still pushed for a 0.25% interest rate hike in their bank rate. So are we going to see the same tomorrow? This is where I've said this before on a live, and this is where we might get a little controversial. And I was on the phone yesterday, to a TV station to do a slot, and they were saying, what do I think the Bank of England should do? Now, obviously, look, I'm not part of the Monetary Policy Committee. I will no influence, no power whatsoever, none. But I think that they have an opportunity right now to really make a statement of intent. And instead of increasing the bank rate by 0.25% to speak, by 0.25%, they have an opportunity to push it up by 0.5% and really try and get that inflation number down. Controversial, I know, because the response that most people have naturally is, well, that's going to make things for mortgage holders even worse, which is true. But in the long run, the quicker we're able to get inflation back down to the 2%, the better it's going to be for everyone overall. So a bit of a controversy right there. And I would love to know, what do you think? If you're in the chat right now, let me just check out the chat. There were a couple of questions in here when I loaded up. If you are in the chat right now, so Zero thinks it's possible to go up by 0.5% tomorrow. I think that that would be the right move. I don't know that they're going to have the guts to do it. Most of the outlets that you would pay attention to are all saying 0.25%. So now that we've kind of got that out of the way, I'm just checking the comment here. Now we've got that out of the way, let's have a look at what the forecast is telling us, because I think when you look at the data, when you look at the numbers, they tend to kind of tell you what they're thinking ahead of time. So what I want to do, I'm just going to share this right here. Let's make sure I get this right. There we go. Right. So this is, and I've been using this since the beginning of this year just to kind of track inflation, interest rates, anything to do with the UK economy, right? So this right here is the UK forecast. All right. So this is, generally speaking, where people would like things to be. So let's have a look at the inflation line here. So currently we're at 7.9%, which is right here. All right, let's put that in blue. This is the Q3 forecast, 5.8. All right, that's the Q3 forecast. Q4, we're looking at 3.9% as the forecast for inflation. It's then in Q1 2024 that we start getting into the realms of the 2%, right? So I'm going to put that in pink because actually right here, we hit target. So their forecasting isn't going to be until Q2 2024 before we actually get to the point where inflation is at the target that they set. But more interestingly, pay attention to this right here. So this is the interest rate forecast. So we're currently at 5. Q3, they're expecting by the end of Q3, that is, they're forecasting 5.5%. 5.5%, with the max being around about 5.75%. Now, if you have been paying attention to the interest rate forecasts over the course of the year, and certainly what I've covered here, before we saw inflation drop, the forecast was 6%. That was the top end of what the interest rate forecasts were to be. This is kind of good news because it's 0.25% less. And when we saw the drop in inflation from 8.9 to 8.7 to 7.9, that was one of the things that really came out in the media, right? One of the key takeaways was that the overall forecast for interest rates has now kind of leveled out. It's come down a little bit to 5.75. But here's the interesting thing. So I've asked in the poll here, do you think we're at the end of interest rate hikes? This kind of gives you the answer based on the forecast and the data that's coming out from the government and the ONS, the Office of National Statistics. So they think Q3, by the end of Q3, we'll be at 5.5%. But look at what happens through Q4, Q1, and Q2. And this leads us into a really important conversation point, right? They're predicting, and again, these change because these are forecasts, these are predictions, right? These are forecast. 5.75% seems to be where it levels out, regardless of the fact that we get closer to the 2% mark, and we actually hit the 2% mark in Q2 2024. So in Q4, 3.9%, if all things go to plan. Q1, 2.7%. There are no interest rate rises, but they hold. Now, this is really important because I still have people asking me what I think is going to happen to this interest rate curve. Now, let's just zoom out here to go 10 years, right? So this is what we've been historically over the last 10 years, since 2014. Very, very low rate. What's that? 0.5%, something like that? Even lower, we started to see it trickle up. But this movement right here is parabolic. That is the last 14 interest rate hikes, over the last 18 months or so. Parabolic movement. A lot of people are speculating, and I think incorrectly, that what we'll see is once inflation starts to come in line, right? So we start to get to that 2% mark, Q1, Q2, we'll see a reverse of interest rates in a similar fashion to this. I think if you hold that expectation, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Because I think what's going to happen is, if we go back into the forecast right here, let's go forward. We go back to the forecast right here. Interest rates, 5.75 for Q4, 5.75 for Q1, 5.75 for Q2. That is the forecast. Leveling, remaining the same. We don't see any predictions whatsoever of any interest rate reductions right now. Not according to this forecast, right up to Q2 2024. And I think that's important for a number of reasons. So let me come full screen right here. The people who are going to be most concerned about what's going to happen tomorrow and potentially in September. So this is what the consensus is. The consensus is tomorrow we'll see a 0.25% interest rate hike, taking it to 5.25%. And then in September, we'll see an additional 0.25%, taking it up to 5.5. That would come very much in line with the forecast that we're seeing at the end of Q3 to be 5.5%. It feeds into that narrative quite nicely. Now, clearly, we are expecting that inflation falls and continues to fall. However, there are so many moving parts, right? There are so many things. And I need to do a video about savings accounts. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this live. But I will do a separate video on that probably, what's tomorrow? Thursday, probably tomorrow evening, around about the same time, because the FCA is now stepping in to the savings conversation. And that's going to be very, very important for inflation and the inflation numbers specifically. But really, who's going to be concerned with this? The most people who are going to be feeling the pain will be mortgage holders. Now, there was an article that I saw earlier today, and I just want to kind of just encapsulate a point, which is a very, very important point that the article basically made. And it is this point right here. So Nationwide's chief economist, Robert Gardner, said the typical first-time buyer with a deposit of 20% would see their mortgage payments at current rate accounts of 40 current rates account for 43% of their take-home pay, up from 32% a year ago. Now, this speaks specifically to first-time buyers, but this is also going to be true to homeowners. Because what's going to happen is you would have your mortgage maybe 500 quid a month. If you've negotiated a decent deal, if you're coming off your fixed rate and you're within that 6-month window, you've negotiated a new deal, what you are going to see is you're going to see £200-300 increase in your payment, depending on how much you have left on your mortgage and how the term and all that kind of stuff. Me, I managed to go from a 1.49, ours ends in October, I'm going to a 4.75. That represents about a £210 increase in mortgage fees, in mortgage costs per month to me, right? So my mortgage payment goes up. So if I did that in a calculation of how much my mortgage payments are in relation to my take-home pay, obviously there's going to be a big jump. So that applies for first-time buyers and people who already have mortgages right now. Now, this is the unpalatable thing, right? We've seen all of these interest rate rises happen over the past 18 months. Tomorrow's going to be the 15th. Unfortunately, the pain for all of those is not fully realized just yet. Why? Because there are only a set number of mortgages that have come up for renewal, where people have had to go from, their 1.49, 1.5%, 2% mortgages to rates as they currently are right now. There will be circa probably, from the last time I checked the data, 1.4, maybe 2 million mortgages over the next 12 months that will be in the same position. And so I've said this on the channel before. Proactivity is really, really important. Being proactive, taking charge of this, speaking to lenders. Because the idea is, and again, we could be wrong here. We could be 100% wrong. But I think a lot of people are hanging their hat on the idea that we are going to see these interest rates fall through 2024. For what we're seeing here, and again, they could change and they probably will change. We're seeing interest rates even out right up until all the way through Q4, Q1, and Q2 of 2024. So if you're kind of sitting thinking, all right, I might just kind of wait and see what happens with interest rates, just be prepared for the fact that interest rates might just level out. And this is the other bit that is really worthwhile speaking about. And I have to reiterate this. The days of low interest rates are over. We're not going back there anytime soon. 1% mortgage rates, 2% mortgage rates, they're gone. I think where mortgage rates will likely settle is probably going to be in the 4-5% range for most of us. And what that means is we have to make that financial adjustment to our spending, to our financial habits to be able to climatize to the new norm of higher mortgage rates and therefore higher mortgage payments, higher rents for renters. That's going to be the new norm, not new norm. And as unpalatable as that may sound, I think it is what is reasonable. And again, I don't see interest rates coming down anywhere near as fast as they went up over the past 18 months. If anything, if they do reduce it, it's going to be a very, very slow, gradual reduction in interest rates. There's a lot going on globally right now as well. I mean, we can talk about the stock market and what's going to happen there. I mean, there's a lot going on globally right now. And we're talking about this inflation saga as though it's momentary. It's not. I think this is going to go on for a very long time. The longer the war in Ukraine persists, there are geopolitical tensions elsewhere in the world right now, which could have inflationary impacts as well. I'm thinking about what's going on in Niger and France, uranium energy. We don't know how that's all going to play out just yet. And so I think as people, the onus is on us. It really, really is. Because the government's only going to be able to do so much. And I'm going to be a little harsh here. I think sometimes we rely or think that the government is going to do more than they are able to do. And this is where taking a little bit of ownership, I think, is going to be really, really important. We've got to take ownership over the things that we can control. And that change, that shift, that climatization, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough. It's going to mean tough decisions. It's going to mean letting go of things that you probably don't want to, making adjustments that are painful. But this is the new reality that we live in. We've enjoyed the heydays of low interest rates. Look at where we are now, though. And I think that adjustment, once we make it, it will become the new norm. But like I always say on this channel, what do we learn now that is going to put us in a better stead later on when something similar comes along and threatens our financial stability? Because it will. It will just be under a different guise. It will be called something else. It won't be inflation necessarily. It might be a stock market crash or a genuine recession, right? What are we going to learn now? What are we going to put in place right now to make sure that we have the ability to be resilient the next time around? So we don't have to make these tough adjustments. How can we be better prepared? I want to have a look at the poll right here. So most people are saying no, they don't think that we're at the top of interest rate hikes right now. And I think that's really important because, and thank you guys for voting, because I think that kind of gives us a sense check, gives us a barometer feel of what the sentiment is out there. I wouldn't, am I a pessimist? I'm a little bit of a pessimist in most things, but I'm also very, very optimistic about things. It's very difficult to be optimistic about this because the pain that you feel is very real, and it's very hard to be optimistic about something when you're having to make really tough choices. So the pessimist in me kind of comes to the fore when I talk about this kind of stuff. But with that being said, I think when you take this news, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of a pessimistic side. If you prepare for the worst, you should be better prepared when the worst actually happens, as opposed to hoping for the best and then something happens that you weren't expecting and you're ill prepared for it. It's all about preparedness, being prepared, thinking ahead of time, trying to figure out what are the threats to my own financial well-being, my own financial, situation, circumstances. What are the threats to those? For most people, they're easily identifiable. For most people, it's, I might lose my job. Okay, so if you lose your job, what do you need to make sure that you're able to keep things tied over? An emergency fund might be very, very appropriate, right? Another thing might be health, right? I might not be able to work because of health issues. Okay, so in addition to an emergency fund, would it be prudent then to have maybe an income protection plan if you have the surplus income to make sure that if you do go off ill, you get a replacement for your income up to 80% of your take-home pay? There are different threats to our financial circumstances that once you're attuned to, you'll be able to figure out, okay, what's the fix? What's the thing I need to have in place to make it as comfortable as possible? And as comfortable as possible being the operative word, because most things that will have a significant impact on how you earn money, how you make a living, how you pay your bills, it's gonna be painful. It means that you're gonna have an impact of some kind. For most people, they will, unless you have a gazillion quid in the bank. But for normal people like us, there will be things that we need to do to adjust to make it as comfortable as possible. Doesn't mean we're not gonna have any pain. We will. Right, let me just get into the comments here. Let's get into the. You know what? Zero is just done what I was going to do. Let me just end this poll first and foremost. Let's end this poll. All right, those are the results. So 83% of people, 82% of people think we are not at the top of interest rate hikes. But Zero doing my work for me right here. So there's 110 people or so on this stream right now. One of the things that you can really do to help me is to take time, a second. That's all it takes, just to tap that like button. The reason why I ask is because we're discussing what's going to happen tomorrow, and we'll get into questions in a minute where I'll answer, I'll offer some answers and some insights based on my expertise. If there's someone else on the internet right now, on YouTube right now, who needs the answers that I might give or needs to hear what we're speaking about, you tapping the like button tells YouTube that you enjoyed and got value from this video, which means that the YouTube algorithm is more likely to put this video in front of that person who may also need to hear this conversation. So by taking just a moment just to tap the like button does wonders, not just for the channel, but for other people who may also need to hear this conversation as well. So if you can take a moment to do that, we got 38 right now. If we can get it up to like 50, 60, that would be amazing. But let's get into your comments, because I feel like I've monologued for long enough here. Let's get into your comments. There was a question on here that was posted, I think by Mo, before we started. Okay, I don't know if can I show this? Yes, I can. Let me just swap this view out very quickly, just to make this a little bit more. I deleted it by mistake. Okay. Let's do it this way then. Let's get rid of this and let's just go straight into comments. So Moses asked here, first time buyer with a mortgage offer secured in June on a 5-year fixed at 5.2% with a 95% loan to value. Good idea to ask the seller to reduce the agreed price as new market value has likely reduced and will carry on dropping. There's also a follow-up here. Don't want to be unreasonable, but also don't want to overpay and risk negative equity straight away. Searches should be arriving soon, so purchase underway. I think, look, if you don't ask, you don't get at the end of the day, right? So if you feel that the property price has dropped, I'll be looking at your valuation as well. What does the valuation come back at? Is the valuation different to what it was when you originally put your offer in that was accepted? If it is, then I think you'll be well within your rights to go back and say, look, property prices are falling. Can we renegotiate at a lower rate? You're just going to have to see what the seller agrees to. They don't have to. You might have your bank also chip in here. If the valuation comes in lower, then they might have a bit of an issue as well. But there's nothing wrong with asking the question. So definitely ask and see what they say. Right, let's have a look. Someone just saying, I've not seen property values drop where I live. They have in fact gone up. Must be a London thing. Yeah, London is one of those. It's one of those. It's got an economy of its own, really, hasn't it? Inside the M25, it feels like it runs on its own momentum, and so it's supply versus demand. There are still more people on the market trying to buy than the homes that are available. So you have that equation in there, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if properties in London, in certain areas of London, are still going up for certain types of properties as well. And that's why I always say to people, pay attention to your local market, because if you're in the market for a 1-bedroom flat, the competition for that might be really, really high right now. Whereas if you have a 5-bedroom home, somewhere in London, the competition may not necessarily be there for that kind of property. So you might see a drop at that level, that side of the market. Whereas for 1, 2, maybe even 3-bedroom flats, the competition is still pretty high, which can serve to push up prices as well. Bernard, thank you very much. Thank you for watching, my friend. Thank you. Yeah, so Ensol's just saying here needs to go up by 0.5%. I think they have an opportunity here. Whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. I'll be very, very surprised if they did. I'll be very, very surprised if they did. What will happen is if for whatever reason inflation spikes in the next 2 months, people will go back and blame them because they didn't do it. But look, I'm not on the MPC. I'm not on that committee. And the people on that committee are far more qualified than I am, far more intelligent than I am, far more uh, an expert or experts on the economy than I am. So, to a certain extent, you have to trust that they know what they're doing. And it will be interesting to see the minutes for the meeting once they have it tomorrow as well. So, the plan for tomorrow is we'll hear the announcement around about lunchtime, around about 12 o'clock roughly. I will be online. I'll probably stream through that just to see what the update is and see if I can get my hands on the minutes, because the minutes from the last one, if you remember, were very, very interesting in terms of their stance if they saw inflation increase, which thankfully it didn't. They were saying in the minutes to the meeting to say, look, in the summary to the meeting, we will continue to push until we see movement on inflation. So what's happened so far is they're continuing to push. I think they're just taking their foot off the gas a little bit. Is it going to be the right move in hindsight? Only time will tell. So we'll see. The US have pushed rates above inflation. The UK must do the same. Short-term pain for long-term gain. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. And like I said, there is no getting away from the fact that, yes, whilst we're saying that inflation has come down, prices are still going up significantly at a multitude of what the normal rate of 2% is. I mean, 7.9 is still almost 4 times. So from a cost of living point of view, people are still feeling it in their pocket. And there's no getting away from that. And this is where it becomes a double-edged sword. If you push at 0.5%, you're making that short term, that immediate pain for renters, mortgage holders. It's there. You're sticking it to them, right? But it's in aid of getting the rate at which things are increasing, inflation, down to the 2% target, which most people, most households can comfortably live with. So it's kind of like causing pain to fix an issue, right? Having to go through a really painful procedure in order to fix something. You've got to bear the pain. And it's a very, very tricky equation to balance. And that's why I'm glad I'm not on the committee, because it's a tough call. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And this is where, again, you need to have a little bit of faith, hoping that they know what they're doing at the Bank of England. If it was all in the hand of Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak, I think I'll be a little bit more skeptical, because I generally don't think that any of the politicians have the foggiest idea what they're going to do from an economic policy point of view. I think they're more concerned about what's going to happen in the next general election and trying to mess it up for whoever it is that gets into office next, which is probably going to be Labour. Try and make that as bad as possible so that the next, and this is how messed up it is, right? How do we have political parties who posture to make things as difficult for the next political party, and they're aiming to two general elections? So we're going to have one soon. They're aiming at the next one, which is 8 years into. And I know you need to have political strategy, and it does take that forward thinking. But when you think of it in terms of they try and sabotage each other, that tell me if you disagree. Tell me if you disagree in the comments, because I would love to know. It's just infuriating. You need people who are going to work together for the greater good, for the good of the people. And it just doesn't feel like it's like that anymore. It feels like there's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of, who's going to grab power, whose agenda is best articulated and I guess adopted, because that's how you win votes. What do I need to say to win votes? It's mad. Like, where is the I wouldn't say integrity really, but where are the core values that matter in all of this, right? Doing the right thing for the people. You can't get everything right for everyone 100%, but it's problematic. It's definitely problematic. Philosophy is just saying here, Philosophy Friday. I like the way you've spelt this, by the way. This is cool. I said a few weeks ago, almost buying a pizza at Co-op for £6, bought my son a tiny 28 gram bag of what's it's £1.40. Yep. And you know what they tend to do is, they'll make the products smaller, so you're getting less for what you're buying, in a way for them to be able to cut their costs, selling these products to maintain their bottom line as well. Mandy Kemp, Pete, if I have a stocks and shares ISA from year, from a previous year, so not this year's ISA, can I sell the stocks in the ISA and rebuy new stocks in that ISA, or am I only allowed to sell only? Okay, so this is where you get into the ISA rules, basically. Okay, why do you want to sell them? Right. So why do you want to sell and rebuy? Because that's the core question here. Selling just to rebuy the same stocks makes no sense to me without context. Because let's just assume that you're down right now, you'll be selling a loss only to rebuy at that lower point. So you're going to exit at a low point. You're going to exit here. You might have bought here, you'll exit here, and then you'll buy in here. Your position's exactly the same, but now you've lost the money that you invested in the first place between here and here. So it's not that you can't sell and rebuy. The question is, should you? Are you doing it because you're trying to move from one provider to another, so HSBC to Barclays? If you are, then what you need to do is you need to think about, right, you want to go here, HSBC, from Barclays, go to HSBC, ask them to transfer from Barclays. That's what you should do. You can buy and resell if you've got you can sell and rebuy, but you also need to be aware of your allowance, because some of the ISAs will not allow you to repay what you've already taken out. And if you're over your ISA subscription, so let's just say, you've got £30,000 in there and you sold everything. So just to rebuy, your limit for this tax year is 20 grand. So you wouldn't be able to rebuy 30 grand's worth of stocks. You'll only be able to rebuy 20 grand's worth. So now you've liquidated £10,000. It's hard to know without any context, but I think those are the things that are worthwhile thinking about in this conversation. If you're selling only to rebuy because things have fallen, don't do it. You're in the same position. You bought here, you're going to exit here, only to come back here and buy. You've lost all the money in between, and that loss right here is only on paper until you cash it in. So maybe be a little bit patient, maybe. And again, I don't have context to really be able to kind of, give you a little bit more. If I did, then I would be able to say, look, these are the main things that definitely be worth considering for you, but I don't have that context. Should it be 5.5% tomorrow and 6% in September? This would beat inflation this year. I don't think they've got the stomach for it, mate. Personally, really don't think they have the stomach. So Penguin's just saying here, my rent is now £460. I think I will continue to rent and not buy yet. Yeah, I mean, this is the difficult equation, right? Because when you look at the mortgage cost versus rent, how does it equate? And this is the annoying thing, because a lot of the time, to get a mortgage is often cheaper monthly payments than renting. It's annoying, I know. I'm just scanning through the comments, guys. Bear me 1 second. Yeah, Slee's saying here, people need to take active approach and responsibilities for their finances, stop being lazy, and agreement that the government will do everything for them. I think, look, it is something that is sometimes hard and difficult to talk about, but I think, the more you expect the government to do something, like, they can't, because they can't please everyone. And we have our own responsibilities. We have to take charge. And this is maybe just the pessimist in me speaking, but that's how I've managed to be able to find myself in a position that, 10, 15 years ago was unthinkable. When I was sleeping on the streets, completely unthinkable that I'd be in this kind of situation where I wouldn't necessarily have any financial burdens per se. But that's because I've got to take responsibility. I had no choice but to take responsibility. And I think we really do need to, cultivate that train of thought. Anything the government does for us is just a bonus in my view. I think it will drop down, but slowly, eventually hit 2%, 2 or 3%. It's the cycle. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Yes, it does, mate. You can always learn from what happens in the past, because there are patterns that it leaves. So you can always, pick up and kind of take in a lesson from, like, what happened, why. Are we in similar territory? Because the the main attributes to a situation, if they're similar, will be for similar reasons. And yes, the nuances might be slightly different, but you can tell a lot just by looking at what's happened. Yeah. Duncan should say there, the tax man is the only threat to my financial well-being. Hey, listen, mate, tell me about it. Tell me about it. It's painful. I'm with you, mate. Citadel's just saying here should be 0.5% and then leave it for a few months. Yeah. Smash, dude. Thank you very much. Leandro, what you saying? When getting a new job / promotion, don't go and spend more because you earn more. Rather save more and keep your expenses the same. Lifestyle creep is real. It's very, very real. And trust me, you don't want to be like, it happens subconsciously. And once you bed it in, it's the norm. And this is why I talk about understanding your behavioral patterns. I've definitely been there in this situation right here. Earn more money, spend more money, upgrade the car, shop at nicer places. Then all of a sudden, your expenses, which were down here, are now up here. And now you're like, what have you got to show for it? And this is the epiphany that I had, right? I had the epiphany of, right, I'm in this job, which is extremely stressful. Most days I don't enjoy it, but I enjoy the people that I work with and I enjoy the impact of the work, but it's stressful. Going after sales targets and always having to be on point is stressful. So I get this promotion, upgrade the car, upgrade everything, and then I'm spending more money than I've actually earned. And I look at it and I'm like, I've got nothing to show for it personally. Like, what have I got to show for it? If everything came to an end, and this is the thing, people don't think it will come to an end, but it does. And sometimes it happens very, very swiftly. People become accustomed to earning X amount and spending X amount. We need to be smarter than that. Yes, reward yourself. So if you get a 10% pay rise, okay, go treat yourself. But actually, how much of that 10% can you hold back? I don't care if it's 1%, 2%. I don't care if it's 5%. You've got to hold something back just to give yourself that kind of financial cushion. Because when it does come into an end and it does mean that your circumstances change, you don't want to look back and be like, what was that all for? Yeah, I bought nice things, but what security does that give me? And I've got a friend who's in exactly the same position right now. Business going great guns, multiple clients on, huge retainers. Beginning of this year starts to lose them all because, hey, look, we've got to tighten our belts. Now looking at it thinking, I spent so much money on this, I spent so much money on that. Where's my security? What are we doing this for? It's what I talk about in the book. What are we doing this for? Yeah, Citadel. I love this. Thank you very much, mate. Look, we've got 143 here. We've got 63 likes, so that's a good ratio. If we can get it up to 80, that would be absolutely amazing. Oh, and let me just say, I want to give a huge thank you. I need to get this back up again, actually, because I just want to show you guys this. Right, let me just do this first. Right, let me just. Where was I? I think I'm there. I need to bring this back up because I do want to give a big shout out to everyone who's been tuning into the lives. Now, our subscriber count has gone up quite a bit since we started having these conversations almost daily. And look, I'm not going to lie, YouTube is very, very hard. This is my 3rd year on YouTube, and I'm trying to find a way to create content that, number one, that I find interesting, where it facilitates a conversation like this, where it's not threatening. We can have a conversation in the comments and we can have a two-way and I can share some of my knowledge and my expertise, but do it in a way that feels genuine and feels natural, right? Without it being too forced or pre-produced or edited. And I feel like this format really, really works. And to see the acknowledgement and the count go up as it is right now, I mean, we're 11 away from 42,000. It's pretty amazing. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined over the past, how long we've been doing this for, maybe a month or so, as I've been trialing this out. I will be looking to kind of improve this as we go along. The genuine hope is I'll be able to get guests on more regularly and actually be able to get some pretty decent, reputable guests as well on the stream who can share some of their perspectives. So it's not just me speaking and talking to you guys. But that's going to be a work in progress. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's subscribed. And if you are watching this, by the way, and maybe you're finding me for the first time, consider subscribing, because I will have a more how can I say, a more structured routine for these lives in the next couple of weeks. So it might be that we have a live on a Monday, a Tuesday, I break on a Wednesday, then we go Thursday, Friday, break on Saturday, then we do the finance clinic on Sunday. But the idea is we'll have regular conversations and just covering, some of the stuff that's happening in the news that might be confusing for people. Talk about it just in normal terms, right? Break down the jargon, take it all away, and talk about what it actually means for everyone. And again, giving some tips, using my expertise to kind of help people. So if you haven't subscribed, it will mean the world to me, because yeah, getting to 42,000 will be amazing. Trying to grow the channel, and it's not the end all be all having huge subscriber counts. That's one thing I've definitely learned over the past couple of years. But it is an acknowledgement that, okay, maybe the content is right and it is resonating with people. So shows of support around the subscription and, liking the videos like this are huge for the YouTube algorithm and huge for me as well. So thank you. Right, let's get back onto the comments. I'm conscious of time. We're about 41 minutes into this at the moment. So Jack's Financials on here. What's going on, dude? Oh, mate, listen. So Jack is saying here, one of the biggest financial problems I've found with clients is their inability to anticipate a large cost. Example, weddings, house purchase, health scares, and how quickly they can happen. I would 100% resonate that. So Jax is an investment manager, really good guy, great guy, fantastic guy. Has he been on YouTube? He's been on live with me on Instagram. I don't think he's been on live with me on YouTube. Maybe we need to do that, but I don't know what your situation is at the moment, dude, because I know things have changed for you. But I'll message you after this on YouTube and stuff. But yeah, hope everything is well, dude. Hope everything is well, and thank you so much for tuning in. Right, where was I before? Okay, here is that where I was? Okay, here, found it. All right, let's go with this. Can you sell a house in 5 years' time when you are on a 25-year mortgage? What impact would it have if you sell after 5 years? You can sell after 5 years. I mean, the term of your mortgage being your overall term to pay off the entire mortgage doesn't really impact that. You're fine to sell 5 years in, 2 years in, 4 years in, as long as you obviously have a buyer who wants to buy, and obviously you settle whatever's outstanding on the mortgage. You'll be completely fine. There is no negative impact whatsoever, unless obviously you've missed like mortgage payments or you're forced to sell the home because there have been financial difficulties. That's when you might have a negative impact on things like credit score. But you're free to sell the home. If everything's going okay and you just want to move, or you decided you don't want the house anymore, you want to sell after 5 years, that's completely fine. As long as you've got a buyer and you have some equity in there that, hopefully you'll be able to walk away with, you'll be good. Most are saying here, be prepared that you may lose your house. I think that's something that all mortgage holders are obviously, it's always in the back of their mind. It's always in the back of my mind, which is why, you start thinking about, how you can overpay and, reduce that mortgage term as much as possible. Sausage is saying house prices have started to slide. I think they end up around 5 to 7% down by the end of the year. 2024 is where big falls will be, maybe another 10% plus in 2024. Those 20% COVID gains will be wiped out. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, a lot of the data for the property market is very, very late. So we might be seeing 5 to 7%, but how recent is that data? Because some of it is very, very late, particularly if it's coming from the land registry. Yep. Kate Arts is saying here, Fed still raised their rate and their inflation is 3%. Yep, they did. And, this is one of the things, it's about being as proactive as possible and not kind of taking your foot off the gas too much, which some people will argue the Bank of England is potentially in danger of doing. If there was no interest rate rise tomorrow, I mean, it's still a possibility, but no one's talking about that. But if they did, say, you know what, we're not going to increase interest rates, I think that would go down like a lead balloon. That would not be received well at all. They have to do something. They have to be seen to be doing something as well. Bradley's just saying here, all the establishment parties serve their donors, the companies and special interests that fund them, and employ them in second jobs and careers. Look at how MPs have second jobs. Yep, I would agree with that. I mean, when you look at the American political system, I mean, we're still relatively lucky in compared to them. I mean, their lobbying is out of control. It's mad. But it's getting worse here in the UK. Like I said, I just wish that they would just work together for the greater good, like to actually serve the people. You know, it's very very annoying, particularly when you start hearing, that these MPs are taking meetings with, in exchange for money, promising access to important people in government. It's like, seriously? I mean, that in itself should be a crime, really, because you should hold yourself to higher standards. And yes, there may be introductions, but you can make the introduction, but you cannot receive payment of any kind in exchange for the introduction. I mean, that's what the rule is. Why do they not abide by it? And that's why people talk about corruption, right? Kevin's just saying here, I'm looking at a cash transfer at the moment with 5.7% interest. Do you think I should go out? Should look for a better bank interest rate on savings? Is it likely will go up? Yes. If the I need to do a video on this, and I'll probably be doing it maybe tomorrow, on savings rates. So if the bank rate goes up tomorrow, savings rates will move accordingly. How much of it is passed on is the big question. So the FCA are now stepping in, and they've got a 14 rule, like 14 principles, 14 things that providers of savings accounts have to do to demonstrate that they're passing on the interest rate hikes to their customers. And if they're not, they also need to justify why not. I'll talk about that tomorrow. But in answering your question, yes, you should. Unless you're happy with the 5.7% rate. So let's just say it's a fixed notice account. I mean, that would be pretty high for a fixed notice account. Then it's pretty good. But you will see rates go up tomorrow. So it might be worthwhile just waiting. Good conversation going on here between you guys. Thank you very much. Joy just saying, I'm a teacher with some savings. Would I benefit from any teachers' mortgage schemes? Yes. I've not looked at one of them for ages though, but I know that there are incentives for teachers with mortgages and stuff that they help you with, like your deposits and stuff like that. So it's definitely worthwhile looking at and definitely looking into and asking the question, what's available? Because in my opinion, every little bit is going to help you. And if being a teacher is going to help you get on the property ladder or help you with your deposit, that's your entitlement. You should definitely do that. I mean, you guys, my partner's a teacher as well, and just dealing with kids, I mean, the stuff she tells me, I could not do it. I don't have the temperament for it, for the age group that she teaches. And you've got to have the patience of a saint. I certainly don't. And you guys are overworked. You do long hours. It's stressful. Yeah, you deserve all the help that you can get. So definitely use it. So philosophy is asking, may I ask why the Bank of England are wanting to avoid deflation? I don't really get that. Surely everything would be cheaper, and that's what they wanted when inflation gets so high. I mean, it's a balancing act, mate. They need to make sure you can't have a situation where everything is going down in price, because that's counterintuitive. So what the idea with the 2% inflation target is that most businesses, most households can afford a 2% increase. So that means that, your standard of living is increasing ever so slightly. Whereas if everything is working the opposite way, where everything's falling in value and everything's so cheap, that's not necessarily good for the economy. And the economy is the main thing. It's not good for the economy. And that's why they try to avoid. I mean, there's stagflation and there's deflation as well. Maybe I'll do a separate video on both of those, actually, and we can get into the weeds of those. But ideally, you want to have inflation at around about 2%, That's the norm. That's the sweet spot, in opposed to having everything where everything's falling in value, because the impact on the economy and business generally is bad. It's not good at all. When you need an economy that is actually growing, and it's very, very hard to see growth in stagflation and a deflationary environment. Yeah, better late than never. You are here, so thank you very much for joining. And see, let's have a look at this. If I have 50K in cash ISA, am I able to transfer all of it to in one go with us into a stocks and shares ISA? If it's in a stocks and shares ISA currently, yes. You're talking about a cash ISA, so no, you can't, because you've still got to bear in mind that you've got a £20,000 and tax year allowance, right? You can't pay more than 20 grand. You can't. Now, if you're married, you can give 20K to your husband, you can get 40K in, but you are giving 20K to your husband. It's in his name, not in yours. But if, let's assume you're on your own, Anne, you can't just pay 50K from a cash ISA into a stocks and shares ISA. You'd have to do that over 3 tax years. Okay, so let's just reiterate this. You can't, if it's in a cash ISA, not into a stock. Actually, one second. Let me just think about this. Is in a cash ISA. It's already in cash ISA. Yes, you can. Sorry. Yes, you can. You can. It's already in a cash ISA. So you can transfer it into a stocks and shares ISA, no problem at all. I don't know why my head just went to, it negated the fact that it was in a cash ISA. If it was in a cash account, you wouldn't be able to do it. But it's in a cash ISA, so yes, you can. Sorry. My bad. And good spot there. Crappy products. Well done. Good spot there as well. Yeah, so Bunga Bunga's saying it. Great news for savers. Like I said, I will talk about the FCA interventions tomorrow. I need to find the link and just digest. I had a very, very brief look at it yesterday when I was in Greece as we were on the way back. And some of the stuff is good. I have some reservations. I'll cover that tomorrow, but it is going to be good for savers. And that intervention by the FCA will hopefully force the banks to pass on more. Because when you look at the stats of how much they've actually passed on to customers with all of the interest rate hikes that we've seen, it's bad. And I didn't think it was that bad, but it's really, really poor. Really, really poor. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really, really do. Thank you so much. Really, for a super sticker. This is the first time I've had a super sticker, actually. Thank you very much. £5 super sticker. Thank you. You know, I might have a little gong or something like that for these kind of moments where we get something new on the channel. But, you know, thank you. I know it's £5. People are like, it's not a lot, Pete. But actually, the fact that you decided to donate £5 to the channel, to me, that in itself is the gesture that counts. It doesn't matter if it's £1 or £10, whatever. The gesture is very much appreciated. So thank you very, very much. All right, that's the end of the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I haven't done one of these in a while, I have to say. So it's nice to be back. And yes, there's a lot to talk about. So tomorrow I will be online. I think probably midday. I think most people will be at work. But if you are able to tune in, I'll give an update as and when we find out what's going on with interest rates and the decision. I don't think I've got anything in for 12 o'clock tomorrow, have I? I say that now, and I probably have. No, that's Friday. What am I doing tomorrow? I do have a chat at 12 o'clock. So I might be on shortly after 12 o'clock once we've got the news, but I will be on tomorrow afternoon just to give an update. It'll be great for you to tune in if you have the ability to do so. If not, you'll be able to watch it on replay. I'm looking at the feed and I need to sort my internet here because I'm not liking what I'm seeing on the feed. I think for some of you, the feed is a little blurry in terms of the video quality. Apologies, it's just my internet here because we're in the countryside. It's crap. Some days it's good, some days it's not. I need to look into this. But thank you so much. There's 117 people on here at the moment. We've got 80 likes. If we can get to 100, that will be amazing. So please, 20 more likes before we finish this off. But I will see you tomorrow, and I'll have more information of the other things that we'll cover through the week. We will have a finance clinic this Sunday. So if you do have specific questions around, what you're doing, things that you want, that you're thinking of, you need a bit of guidance, a little bit of clarity, come along on Sunday and we can interact. We can answer some questions right there. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I appreciate every single one of you. I will speak to you. It's going to be mañana. Thank you.
Yeah. Surprise, a little different than you're used to. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the Moe, all the Mars on deck. We got the traders, got the picture with the Bentley in Dubai. Are you dripping in designer, looking fly? On the bombardier, sipping on the wine. Broke man, we broke. Where's the fun in being broke? Stocks and bonds get you yo. That's what I'm teaching these folks. I see that smoke, see them choke. Getting coke. While I'm researching these stocks, buying coke. 20 months on the channel, million people taking note. I got a warrant for Buffet. I'm coming for his vote.